the Biden administration has been very, very lenient towards Israel. People say, look, Biden has strongly committed himself. He's not willing to put any pressure. Even last night, he's come out to defend. So I think the Biden administration is helpless. It's not that it is a plan, we'll tell one thing to the public internationally. You can't do that these days, You speak to the world is also speaking to your own audiences. So I think the Biden administration's approach has been, we don't like what Israel is doing. We want them to be restrained.
Welcome to the Gist on StratNewsGlobal. I'm Ramananda Sengupta. Today we're going to be talking about the rapidly evolving situation in the Middle East. And our very special guest today is Dr. C. Mohan, one of India's foremost foreign policy analysts. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you taking time out. I know you have a very hectic schedule, so I'll try and keep this short.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let's start with Netanyahu's so-called address to Iran, which I read about in your column today in the Indian Express. What was that all about? I mean, what was he trying to do? Was he trying to incite the Iranians in some way, or was it a warning? What was it?
No, I think what he was doing, I thought, was really setting an end goal to this military operation. It's now what started on after October 7th. It's now soon going to be 1 year of that. Essentially saying, look, so far he's been, the focus has been on debilitating Iran's proxies, the Hamas in Gaza and in Hezbollah in Lebanon. But for them, it was always clear that, look, Iran is the source of the problem. That the strength that Hezbollah and Hamas have got is from the support they've received from Tehran. Therefore, doing something about the source of the threat, that is the political objective he's setting for himself, and that it's not enough to use some of the metaphor that Israelis are using these days. No point just attacking the octopus's tentacles, that you have to get to the head of the octopus. And for them, for the Israelis, Iran is the mastermind. Therefore, you have to attack the mastermind. I think for those who are familiar with the debates on Iran and Israel, this is not a surprise. That for them, they've consistently viewed for the last 30 years Iran as the principal threat in the region. And that's one of the reasons why. I mean, they were eager to make up with the others, with Iran's neighbors in the Gulf, as well as the other Arab states. So for them, I think what came to light on October 7th was how dangerous the proxies were. So now, it's really first initially at Hamas, which is quite a heavy, almost a brutal campaign that we know, it cost 40,000 lives. And now against Hezbollah, and then the ground invasion and the attacks on Beirut and other parts of Lebanon that's going on. But they know that this is not an end in itself. They have to deal with Iran itself. So I think he's basically telling the Iranian people that we have nothing against you. Israel has nothing against you. We have a common enemy, that is the Islamic Republic, the Islamic theocracy that has run Iran since 1979, and that this regime is actually treating you badly. It is doing external adventures. It is not taking care of your interests. We want to live in peace, and that if and when we can produce the end of this regime, that there's a lot Israel and Iran can do together. So I just want to add one thing here. I mean, that actually, if you go to the days of Shah of Iran, who was the king of Iran till 1979, that there was actually fairly substantive cooperation between Israel and the monarchy of Iran. So, in fact, at one point they were even jointly developing a missile. So for them, so I think what the Islamic Republic did was, it was not only a anti-monarchical, but it was also claimed to be revolutionary. And it said it is going to take up the Muslim causes. For them, the Palestinian question of fighting Israel was not just an Arab issue, it was a Muslim issue. Therefore, they're going to take up this issue and they're going to fight. And that one of their legitimizing ideologies was the need to fight against Israel. And that in one level, of course, they were claiming to be more Arab than the Arabs, and that they're more committed to fighting Israel. So I think that rhetoric they never gave up. And I think so that's for Israel too, both ideologically and for Iran. Sorry, for Israel, threat has been real for a long time, and for Iran, ideologically, it has always put hostility to Iran, death to America, death to Israel were the two main slogans of the Islamic Republic.
But I've always wondered that initially when this whole thing started off, I mean, after the October 7th last year thing. A lot of people said that Netanyahu was going to use this to sort of, rebuild his own political position because he was in trouble politically at home. Do you think he's managed to redeem some of that with all this that's been going on?
Of course, yes. I mean, I think in many ways his position has gone up, especially in the last few weeks after the killing of Nasrallah in Lebanon. So I think, see, both the facts are there. It's not that there's only one. It was not all about domestic politics. It was also about security. So in a way, he was in trouble politically before October 7th. And most people saw him as the one responsible. But Israelis have also said, look, we dislike this leader. He was actually responsible for what happened on October 7th because of his failures. But when the nation is under attack, we're going to rally around the flag. We have to take care of our enemies. So that's been the general line. And the assumption that if the war ends, his future is in doubt. But now I think he's really showed up his position by what he has done in Lebanon. But I think the costs of this, of course, are too high. And he's got some support from the right. And some centrist forces have also backed his strategy. So I think it has really improved its position. But I think what is now planning is much more ambitious to really take on Iran. Now, how we'll do it, what are the ways in which it is going to unfold? Of course, that is the next few days. That's what we're going to see.
But, first it was, the Hamas. Now it's in, the north with Lebanon. Does Israel have that kind of a capability to sort of deal with both these fronts at the same time? Or is Hamas more or less debilitated right now?
No, I think their capabilities cannot be underestimated. They have enormous military capabilities, although the size of the population is small. But they also have American support. So I think the technical skills, in a way, their edge over the Arab neighbors is pretty impressive. But the point was that Israel has neutralized that military technological edge by setting up these jihadi groups, by setting up militant groups. So in a way, making it a hybrid war rather than a war between states. And I think that's where the challenge for Israel has been. How does it deal with Hamas and Hezbollah? So that's been the challenge, and I think they've kind of addressed them. But with Iran, it will be a more serious conventional war. I mean, you saw last night there were these missiles, 200 missiles were lobbed by Iran on Israel. Of course, they say, look, this is end for this round, but the fact is, the Israelis have promised retaliation. So this is now more direct conventional war, and if Iran, if Israel retaliates, in what form we don't know, and if Iran pushes back again, I think it's inevitable that the Americans will be drawn into this conflict sooner than later. So I think it'll be. That's why I use the phrase, it could be an all-out war, it could be a total war. So what Netanyahu is saying that, look, it's not just, negotiating some kind of peace terms with it. You got to eliminate the regime in Tehran that is creating this. Therefore, the need to change the order in Tehran. So it is a bigger, bolder objective that Israel is setting for itself.
The other thing that strikes me is that, somebody was explaining that the Americans basically told Israel that you go ahead and finish off these guys, but for our domestic audience, we'll have to keep on telling them that, you know what, it's not a good thing, but we're going to keep on supporting you all the time. Is that a
No,
correct assessment?
it's not. Governments don't operate like that. This kind of conspiracy theories. Look, the problem for the Biden administration, there is a lot of unhappiness in the Democratic Party. There's a lot of unhappiness in the State Department. A lot of State Department officers have said, look, the Biden administration has been very, very lenient towards Israel. People say, look, Biden has strongly committed himself. He's not willing to put any pressure. Even last night, he's come out to defend. So I think the Biden administration is helpless. It's not that it is a plan, we'll tell one thing to the public internationally. You can't do that these days. You speak to the world is also speaking to your own audiences. So I think the Biden administration's approach has been, we don't like what Israel is doing. We want them to be restrained. I mean, Secretary of State Blinken has made how many trips has he made to produce a ceasefire? But Netanyahu is saying, look, I'll do my thing. And he's confident that whatever the criticisms that the Biden administration might have, it has no choice but to support the whatever Israel does. But this is not new. I mean, Netanyahu had the same problem with Obama in the past. When Obama was doing the nuclear deal, Iran was the biggest opponent. So the Democrats have generally tended to emphasize diplomacy, restraint, rules, and let's bring in Iran into some kind of a form. On the other hand, the Republicans have always said, look, the only way to deal with this is regime change. If you go back to Trump was mounting a massive maximum pressure campaign against Iran. And when Biden came, they softened the position towards Iran. But they said, look, let's lift some sanctions, let's revive the nuclear deal, let's have a general peace in the region. But that kind of a liberal, peacenik type of approach, which Netanyahu, of course, has no time for that. And he has prevailed. So I think you can say Biden administration is going along because it has no other choice. But the Republicans, if Trump wins, they're going to fully back any Israeli campaign if they want to take on Iran, they'll be quite supportive.
So that means if Trump comes into the White House next year, it's going to be sort of, more or less aligned with what Netanyahu is doing. Without having to sort of,
So the thing is, as we said, look, one is going to do it helplessly, that is the Biden.
Right.
The other one, their ideological worldview is, look, let's take on Iran is the problem. And let's go for it. So at least in the Republican Party, that is the view.
So the fact that Israel has managed to bump off so many people from the Hezbollah and from the Hamas over the last few weeks is a sign that they've really managed to penetrate deep into the system, into the Iranian system. Now, how much of a threat does that pose to Iran? I mean, does that mean that the Iranian leaders are all sort of cowering under their beds and changing their place every night, or is Iran more or less secure?
Look, I think that's I don't think they're covering under the bed, but the fact is, you had a state guest from, Hamas come to the swearing-in ceremony of the new president. He's staying in a state guest house in great security, and Israel manages to knock him off.
Right.
So over the last many years, they have killed so many nuclear scientists, they've targeted so many people in the Iranian establishment, so that they penetrated. What it does is it creates suspicions within the establishment, security establishment.
Right.
Who is giving them? Is there a mole? So then the question of who is if 10 of us are sitting in a room, we're supposed to be one gang, but our enemy is attacking us. So obviously someone is leaking. Who is the Judas, if you will, to use a metaphor. So I think that itself creates tensions within the system. But at this point, one would presume the president is safe on the top level. But next few days, who knows? I mean, how far Iran will go? What are the choice it makes in terms of what are its initial targets? So I think it's all open now. But the fact is, one strategy for Israel has long been to penetrate the system, explore the internal divisions, find some dissidents, work with them to undermine but that's of course, it's always been a classic part of statecraft.
The exploding sort of walkie-talkies and all that stuff, exploding pagers and everything. They all smack of some incredible levels of,
Yeah, no, I was
the
not talking about.
intelligence.
I was not talking about Lebanon, or I was talking about Iran.
Mm-hmm.
So what they've done in Lebanon, of course, it's a different scale. I mean, I think they were directly, they penetrated fully the establishment. They had all the intelligence. So there, I think they were far more. See, Lebanon is next door. Iran is slightly far away. So that's a different game. So earlier I was talking about how they penetrated into Iran's establishment, as
Right.
opposed to Lebanon, which is next door. So I think different scale, but what they've achieved, in fact, within 2 weeks, the continuous attacks, initially the pagers, then the walkie-talkie, then the bunker buster of the whole leadership of Nasrallah. I mean, I think it's
Right.
quite an achievement, militarily speaking, for Netanyahu, and that's the reason why he's gained a lot of political ground at home.
Mm-hmm. But so if you were to stick to Lebanon for one more second, how popular is Hezbollah itself in Lebanon? Because there's been a lot of talk about how they have sort of usurped the whole system there, and there's a parallel government which really doesn't want them there, and things like that. How popular is Hezbollah there?
I think, look, it's not a question of popular. I mean, I think Lebanon is deeply divided society. It has large, about almost 30% Shia population, which is what backs Hezbollah, seen as a defender initially. But the whole state, the original state of Lebanon, has collapsed. So, in fact,
Okay.
that's what Israelis are saying, that look, that having eliminated Hezbollah, which is really not a, it's a non-state actor, but that has gained huge control over the state. You need to put the whole state back together. So he had an address to Netanyahu, addressed the people of Lebanon, saying, look, they have nothing against the people of Lebanon, telling them not to give shelter to Hezbollah and its activists. What it is willing to do is to create some space in which the Lebanese state can be stitched together back. So whether that can be done under the current situations is the big question. But I think their military goal is not to go and occupy, because they can't occupy Lebanon. They can do military forays. So they need a regime in Lebanon as well. So in a way, it's all regime construction, if you will, in Lebanon. You need to construct a government that can take care of its territory and is friendly to the Israelis and the other neighbors in the region. So if you say, look, it's regime change in Iran, it's regime construction in Lebanon, that is on the agenda. But these are very, very ambitious goals.
Since we're talking regime change in Iran, what kind of a new regime would both Israel and the US be comfortable with? Because I mean, there's talk about the Shah and a whole bunch of other, other people coming in. I mean, what if somebody even more of a fundamentalist came in?
Look, I think no. I think they've had enough of fundamentalism. I don't think the problem in Iran is the groups that are fighting the regime. Some of them were initially, but for Iran, for Israel at this point, it's really anybody but. So no one knows. Look, what happened in Iraq. I mean, you thought you could go in and produce a democracy. That didn't work out. But regime did change. There is today Shia's majority community rules Iraq, for good or bad. In Afghanistan, it didn't work. You thought you would replace Taliban regime after the 9/11 attacks with a new order, which is more representative, more democratic. But today, after fighting for 20 years, Taliban is back. So there's no way you can predict it. But the point is, if the current rulers are unacceptable, you try and push and see what happens, which is what I think they have in mind. And we have the Shah Firan's son, who is now pretty active. In fact, he's already come up in the last few days on the social media, last few hours in the social media, saying, asking the Iranian army to defect, to support the people, and to overthrow the regime. So I think that is one part. There will be an attempt to mobilize the people, mobilize key actors. That's one way. And second is to divide the establishment, create divisions within them. And of course, if neither of them works, finally, it's a use of force from outside. So I think it's going to be a complex mixture of things in the next few days. But if anyone tells you they know what's going to happen next, this is the tragedy of use of force. Once you get into the game, once you start using force, the outcomes cannot be controlled. So
Right.
most of the time, the unintended consequences of the use of force tend to be far more lasting than the intended consequences. So that's where it is.
Mhm.
But in some cases where we had clarity, like for example, the fight against Nazi Germany, okay, everybody got together and said, "Look, we're going to eliminate this regime." So the
Mhm.
defeat in a total war was comprehensive, was thrown out. So the old regime was dismantled, a new order was constructed. All kinds of things had to be done in Germany. Similarly, in Japan, Imperial Japan, the old monarch was kept, but the system was modified by the Americans. So, if there is a war, if there's a total war, that is a war that takes place to defeat this regime, then I think all kinds of ways in which that can be done. There are other historic examples, but at this point, to get to that point where this regime can simply collapse, because it's, as I've argued, its capacity to fight back is deep, particularly on its own soil,
Mhm.
the systems that it has. So it has to have some local support. And the question is, none of us know enough about what is going on, and that's what makes the current situation so dynamic and I would say
That's right.
yeah.
I was about to ask you to sort of try and, put forth a few possible scenarios, but instead of that, I was also wondering 200 ballistic missiles and one death. Don't you see something a bit odd about that?
It's not odd. I mean, I think what Israel has done is really build this missile defense system, which they
Hmm.
are using technology to stop. See what we know. We all know about air defense, right? You create
Right.
you know capabilities to fend off missiles, but I think here a multi-layered system of defense against missiles, and then people also is a disciplined society that is used to war, so they all go into bunkers, they take care. So I think multiple measures, but I think it
Hmm.
shows that how much technology of defense has evolved, that you can actually
Right.
protect large cities from attacks by. But same Israel could not protect itself against terrorism, right? In
Hmm.
what happened in outside Gaza in October 7th, or last night, where you had a bunch of Palestinian gunmen shot dead 7 citizens in the street.
Right.
So you can eliminate some threats, but you can't eliminate all threats. But the fact is, in terms of defending cities by using new technologies, is quite improved vastly over the last few years.
Hmm. Okay. So, I know we've almost run out of time. I'll ask you one last question. How big a blow has, the ICC ruling against Netanyahu and, the sort of um, feeling against him because of what he's doing in the Gaza Strip. How big a problem is that for Netanyahu internationally? Forget the Iranians and the Lebanese. Is that going to cause problems later on?
I don't think Israel takes ICC seriously. I don't think Israel takes UN seriously. Nobody serious takes either of these seriously. So the
Hmm.
ICC is only used against African countries,
Right.
where you're a country backed by a major power. There's nothing the ICC can do to you.
Hmm.
So ICC is a very European liberal conception. Or somebody bad, we will try them and punish them. But you think anybody can punish Putin? Can anybody can punish Netanyahu?
Yeah.
So you'll have a Bangladeshi friends talk about, we go to ICC, we'll get her out. I mean, this is no major country's take. In fact, US is not a signatory. US
Hmm.
is not going to support any action against Israel, particularly by a multilateral institution like the ICC. So look, if UN resolutions have no value for Israel,
Right.
so I don't think we should take ICC seriously. I mean, it's an interesting normative, moral organization, but its
Hmm.
capacity to act against the big boys is always been limited. So you go after small guys. Like you got some Serbian or you got some African small dictator and say, okay, we're going to try him and punish him. But it doesn't affect small thugs,
Hmm.
yes, but not big thugs get away with it.
Right. So this what's happening now is likely to keep dragging on until there is some kind of a you know
No, it's not
uh,
just a drag on. No. I think we are at a very pivotal moment. This would escalate. I think this looks like it's going to escalate, because Israel has promised retaliation for the missile attack, but Iran is saying, look, sorry, this is done for this round. This round is closed. So if you start again, we'll do again. So I think that's where we are at this point, to see what Israel does in the next couple of days, in the coming days. How does it respond to this? I think that's where the story is for the next few days. But the structurally, you can say we are in a phase of escalation with the potential that it can lead to all-out war between Iran and Israel, and dragging the rest of the region into it. So it's not just lobbing missiles anymore. That will be one part. But I think if it is a total war, there could be a lot more action. I mean, there's speculation already that Israel might bomb some energy installations in Iran. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to be very dynamic, very significant, and very consequential conflict in the next few days.
So, I mean, concluding with what you said earlier, things are likely to get a lot worse before they get any better.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so very much. I mean, it was a real pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to having you again.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. That was Dr. C. Mohan, one of India's foremost analysts of international relations, talking to us about the recent developments in the Middle East. I do hope you enjoyed this particular edition of The Gist, and I look forward to having you again. Till then, this is Ramananda Sengupta signing out.